Hello, Jim.
Hello, Tanya. What is up today? How are you?
I'm good. How about yourself?
I'm doing okay. I'm representing the rush today.
Very good.
So, what are we talking about?
Well, today we are going to talk about horror.
Horror. Oh, yeah.
Horror. Well,
Horror.
Halloween's just passed. Also, we just got back from a fantastic film festival called Film Quest. It's in
Yes.
Provo, Utah, and if you ever get a chance to go, I highly recommend it. It's like the best film festival, the best vibes, the best people.
Yeah. Great, great. Absolutely great experience. Wonderful people. Love Jonathan, Jonna, the whole team there. Just is just incredible. So, okay, horror. Let's talk a little bit about horror. We just watched a whole shit ton of horror movies in the
Yes.
week. We did a couple of panels to several rooms full of horror writers, trying to tell them, how to, best position themselves for success, either via indie or studio, depending on whatever genre flavor they're interested in. What are we talking about specifically? Writing horror?
Yes. Well, we're going to talk about the horror good news, bad news. As we know, horror is one of the big genres nowadays. And
Yeah,
so if you are a genre writer, bravo, great. You're in a very marketable genre,
yeah.
horror. What are the pros of horror? As I said, it's very marketable. It's an extremely marketable genre. And what we mean by that, people are looking to buy horror, people are looking to make horror, and an audience is eager to watch horror. So, of course, we also have differences in the subgenres of horror. For example, sorry, period horror is a problem still, even though it's horror and even if it's low budget, if it's period horror, it is more of a problem to find a home for it. Also, other subgenres like slasher horror can be a bit iffy. Um, but yes, horror in general, extremely marketable, so that's good.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit.
Mhm.
So, we just saw Del Toro's Frankenstein, very expensive, lush. I would hesitate to even call it horror, even,
Yeah,
Frank
even though it's Frankenstein, it's not really horror because again, horror, has certain things that it needs, like horror and
like
scares.
horror, like scary. Yeah. For example, but still, I mean, it would probably be categorized as horror, and it was period. And I don't. It's too early to say whether it will be successful or not. Look, it's for Netflix. That it doesn't matter.
They have the money.
They have the money. They don't care. Ultimately, it's a prestige project for them, and they're hoping for Oscars. Blah 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 blah. So this is a period horror if you have to categorize it as something, and people will say, "Well, look, Del Toro did it. So why can't I?"
Guess what? You're not Del Toro.
Wait, what?
Okay, we've said it 100 million times, so let's say it again. If you're trying to break into this business, there is one set of rules for you. Other people are already in the business and very well connected, well known, worked a lot, different set of rules for them.
Yeah. So, okay. So, for example, and we talked about this in another one of our videos about Get Rep Now. What the result of that was. Like Tanya said, we had a lot of interest in horror from this year's Get Rep Now, which is a promotion we do where we elevate the best scripts that Coverage Inc. sees to our manager panel. It wound up being, I think, 12 scripts this year, and three of them were horror, and those three were the ones that were most requested, although the period horror was the least requested of the horror. Okay. So most of the managers wanted to read um, almost all the horror scripts. About half of them wanted to read the period horror. So that was less desirable. It still got a few reads. And in fact, the writer got a couple of meetings. So it's not like it's not at all marketable. It's just a little trickier. Okay. But just in terms of like what we're able to determine from looking at those results, it is clear horror is the shit right now. That's what people want. So it's a good place to be if you are a horror writer, whether that be for the studios or for indies. Now you mentioned slashers before, Tanya. So yeah, there's a lot of different subgenres of horror. There's slashers are kind of considered like low-hanging fruit in a way, or like programmers, where they don't generally bring something new to the table. Although when something like Terrifier comes along, and makes a lot of money, then people go, oh, okay, well, I guess maybe, blood and gore and just a slasher movie with a crazy clown, maybe that's what people want again. I don't know. But generally speaking, slashers are going to have less appeal as a spec script, unless they find a way to bring something really new or interesting to the table. Um, for example, if it's a theme forward slasher, well, that could be a whole different thing entirely, right?
Exactly. And yeah, so that brings us to horror has gone mainstream. Who knew this would ever happen? But yes, horror has gone mainstream, and one of the main reasons that horror has gone mainstream is that horror has become really theme forward.
Yeah.
And so that kind of is what kicked open the door, which also means that now you have big, big releases with big stars. There are
Yeah.
suddenly, it used to be nobody, no name would really do a horror film because I was like slumming it.
Right, right, right.
But
There was
now
a,
you've got, oh, Hugh Grant, Josh Brolin. Like, oh, everyone's like, oh yes, horror. Oh, and let's not forget Demi Moore in
Demi
The
Moore.
Substance, who got nominated for an Oscar in
Yeah.
a horror film.
Yeah, there was an article just this past week. I forget where it was. I think maybe it was Deadline. One of the trades who was like, yeah, horror was basically has always been like the Rodney Dangerfield of the movie industry. I got no
Yeah, no
respect, you
respect.
know. But it's true. And now, now finally, well, look, I mean, Silence of the Lambs got some love, 30 whatever years ago. But still, in general, genre movies, sci-fi horror, they just, they're they were considered, the ugly duckling of the movie business. But now, not so much. And now all of a sudden, horror is kind of upscale, which is great. So yeah, theme forward horror. I mean, Barbarian, right? The Substance, Weapons, Sinners, all these movies that kind of came, I'm not going to say out of nowhere, because these are established filmmakers who know what they're doing, but really kind of blew everybody away with just how successful they were, sort of, above and beyond what people would expect of a horror. Like, generally, look, you make a horror for, this is how Hollywood thinks, you make a horror movie, the budget is always low, right? It's always going to be $1 to $5 million. That was sort of, the whole Blumhouse model, right? You spend very little money to make the movie, you make back 30, 40, 50 million, maybe you get a hit that gets 100 million. That is an enormously profitable business model that, frankly, Hollywood should do a lot more of
Yeah.
with a lot more of their releases, right? So, it seems to be that they're finally seeing the light of day now, with like Sinners making like whatever, I don't know whatever it made, 200 million domestically on a budget of whatever it was. Like, oh, maybe we should do more of this. So, good place to be if you're a horror writer.
Yeah,
So,
and the other thing, of course, when it comes to the pros of horror is horror. I mean, of course, you can make everything expensive, but horror, in comparison, is still a very budget-friendly genre. I mean, and you still look at, for example, Heretic, fantastic movie, essentially one location. I'm guessing half the budget went to Hugh Grant's salary,
oh,
but it's but huge success.
I think that's actually exactly correct. I seem to recall Ian Holt told us that, right?
Yeah,
Like they had a $10 million budget, and five of that was for Hugh, something like that. But yeah, look, I mean, that's part of the whole appeal for both indies as well as studios. And studios are finally like, oh shit, let me get some of that, not just on the Blumhouse level or the Ghost House level or whatever. Nothing wrong with any of those companies. That's perfectly fine, but it doesn't have to be like the Rosemary's Baby or Exorcist level stuff, which in the past was like the only way a studio might release a horror, as if it had some big prestige or something. But now they're like, yeah, Terrifier, cool.
yeah, exactly. Right. Well, let's go to the bad news, the
Okay,
cons of horror.
okay,
Um, well, so apparently there's a bit of oversaturation happening right now because, of course, horror has been a hot genre for a couple of years now. So everyone's rushed to write horror films and horror scripts. So there is a bit of oversaturation. So you want to make sure that your script is top notch so it actually stands out, amongst the crowd.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, we don't want it to become like the romantic comedy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the cautionary tale. Look, in the 90s, romantic comedies were the shit. And there were quite a few exceptional ones, brilliant, brilliant movies. And then there were all the imitators and the programmers and the Johnny Come Latelys. And all of a sudden, by like 2005, you couldn't get one made. They were dead. Even the actresses who were beloved in those movies, they would come out with one and people wouldn't go see them anymore. It's like they killed the genre by making the same over and over, the same stuff, right? Now, horror has been an evergreen for since cinema began. I don't think there's ever been a time when horror was out of favor. So I mean, there's nothing any of us can do about it, but I do think we have to be careful of Hollywood's tendency to, when they realize something is successful, then that's all they do. And I mean, look what happened with Star Wars, case in point, right? And within 10 years of the acquisition of Lucasfilm, by Disney, they've killed, the largest brand in cinema history. They've killed it. They
Yeah.
made so much bad content over the years, and nobody cares anymore.
Yeah.
It's like, so we don't want that to happen to Star Wars.
To
We
horror
we don't want that to happen. We don't care about Star Wars. Anyway,
anymore.
I, I'm sorry, Luke.
Not that we have any power over this, but hopefully people will be smart enough to not kill the golden goose in this case. So again, since there are a lot of horror scripts floating around, if you're writing one, make sure it's polished to as much perfection as you can muster.
Yeah. And,
And go
go
ahead.
ahead. No,
Okay.
no, you go ahead.
Okay,
No,
I'll
no,
go
you
ahead.
go
I'll
ahead.
go ahead. All
No,
right.
you go ahead.
So next, kind of the downside, horror being a victim of its success is that you have backers, financiers, investors, sales agents wanting names.
Oh,
That
yeah.
that has never been the case, really. It used to be horror. You can make a horror. You don't need a single name. You're fine.
Yeah.
So now they started wanting names for horror because, yay, names now do horror, and it's easier to sell something if you have a name. And or our producer is on this treadmill right now. So we have a script in pre-production, and so the producer is trying to actually get this jigsaw puzzle. It's a horror script, by the way, of course. So he's trying to get this jigsaw puzzle, and the jigsaw puzzle is the cast. So which means I need a name or names or a combination of names that is approved by the financing entity. Those names need to be within the budget,
Yep.
and those names need to be good for the part and available. So that is actually a very, very, very small bullseye.
And have value overseas
Yes.
as well as domestic. These are all the targets that they're trying to hit with this process. And within the business, people who deal with foreign sales, people who finance movies, they know, to a certain point how much certain actors are worth, and they will put up money up to a certain point depending on the perceived value of that actor. Certain actors who are very well known here in the States might not have a lot of appeal overseas, and vice versa. So these are all the things to keep in mind. But let's talk briefly about why this is, because it is relevant to the horror discussion, right? So in the old days, horror was not cast dependent. And to a certain extent, that is still a little bit true on the ultra low budget side, right? But the problem is that horror movies used to be financed to a large degree via foreign pre-sales or foreign sales, you know, uh, helping the producer, the executive producer who puts up the money for the film to recoup. So, for example, if you spend $250,000 on your horror movie, um, you're guaranteed, quote unquote, right? Let's say 250 to 500,000 return from foreign sales worldwide, as well as all the ancillaries. DVD, Blu-ray, airlines, cable, all those other things were all revenue streams. And that's how you were able to make a horror movie that didn't have any cast, because you always knew, like, well, Korea's going to pay, $20,000 for anything. Or if it has a piece of cast, then they'll pay more. But something even with no names, like, yeah, you'll get 10,000 from the Philippines, you'll get 8,000 from Spain, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's how people put these movies together. Not anymore.
Yeah.
Foreign sales are dead. Ancillaries are dead. DVD, Blu-ray, dead. So,
And let's not forget that budgets have exploded. So basically, at the same time that you do not have as many options anymore to raise the money, the budgets have also grown. In other words, the amount of money you have to raise has gone through the roof as well. And of course, a lot of things have changed because overseas they make a lot of their own stuff these days. And basically, streaming is the game changer because once you sell something to Netflix, that's pretty much it. That's the only money you'll ever see again.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
So, and that brings us also to budgets exploding because another thing we have to address when it comes to horror is in the olden days, it was kind of okay to, make a low budget horror movie and at times you could tell exactly how low the budget was and it was still but if you gave the people what they were looking for, they were all on board. It was even kind of fun, it was even kind of expected when something wasn't quite up to the technical level that because that's you couldn't afford that.
Yeah.
So no, those times have completely changed. People, an audience expects a pristine look and sound. And let me say sound again, just pay your sound person. It's just, that's like the one thing where that's always like, oh my God, no, please, you should have paid the sound person.
Yeah, people are not really forgiving of technical weakness anymore. Yeah, I've seen plenty of horror movies from the 80s or 90s that were just schlock fests or so bad they're good. Hey, in fact, I even made a few of them. So, and that's great. But yeah, not so much anymore. And, again, we just came from Film Quest, and, every film we saw, everyone without exception was technically
Yeah,
there.
top notch. Oh my God, it was top notch. After the first, so they have shorts as well as features. So after the first short film block, we said, "Oh my God, was this like the best short film block you've ever seen at a film festival?" And we've been to many, many film festivals.
Yeah, yeah. It's
And
it's
like, yeah,
really
absolutely.
yeah, it's definitely at a higher level now. I think that has a lot to do with, the availability of higher level equipment, low light cameras, blah 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 blah. All this, you can edit on your iPhone now. So which, democratizes the filmmaking process. And, hey, YouTube, right? You don't know something, go on YouTube, you spend 10 minutes, you watch a video, now you know how to do it. So,
Exactly. So basically, to summarize, Horror, great genre to be in right now. I mean, there are some problems on the horizon, and we're hoping it's not going to become a victim of its success. But horror, still a great genre to write in.
Yeah, let's before we go, let's also say, within the subgenres, like what's more popular and what's less popular. We mentioned slashers. For Hollywood, supernatural horror or supernatural thrillers, they tend to like those.
Mhm.
Those tend to get, a lot more play than, say, monster movies
Yeah.
or, blood and gore fests. Okay. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's just because there's less blood or, it's more about atmosphere and stuff like that.
And for a broader audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for a broader audience. So that's great. So if you have something like that, and it's highly polished, you should be able to get some reads on it. Psychological horror, that's another one. And there can be some overlap between all of these things. It's entirely possible. But again, something that could potentially attract an actor, if there's some meat on the bones of the role, where there's levels going on of the psychology. Great. Actors, I mean, look, that's ultimately what you want to do is you want to get an actor who you've heard of, who you respect, who wants to play this role, right? So give them something with texture, with dimension, with psychology to it. What else? So I mentioned monster movies. I mean, look, a lot of monster movies are kind of come from the indie side, although, unless you're Universal or something like that, but so there's a lot of that, and they will get some play and they will get some distribution, and Shudder will probably be interested as a spec selling them. I mean, beware the tropes, werewolves, vampires, zombies, all these things that we've seen so many times done to death. Look, I mean, they make.
Unless you can bring something new to the table, unless, if you want to do zombies, if you bring something new like Warm Bodies did,
Mm,
bring something new to the table.
exactly. And that's going to sort of be the prevailing note, the overall note, which is what can you bring to it? There vampires have been around over 100 years, thank you, Bram. You know, what can you bring new to that justifies someone spending 2 hours reading your screenplay or any of these creatures? How about create a new mythology, a new creature, right? Why not do that? Or look to other mythologies, things that excuse me, might not have been done or as exposed cinematically, and find something in there, Asian mythology, Greek mythology, anything like that, that could be very interesting, and a new way into that stuff. So it's always trying to find a new hook, a new angle to interest a potential reader, even within horror.
Exactly. All right. And again, if you guys have any questions, you can always email us at info@coverageinc.com. That's ink, I-N-K.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Please, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the notification bell. That way, when we drop a new video, which we do 2 or 3 times a week, you will get notified. And if you like this video, you got anything out of it, tell a friend. Share it. Hey, we're here for you guys. And I hope you all got something out of it. So thanks for watching.